Youp's next guest.
Okay, all right, we're going to start. Hans van Burk RC, Executive Master in Finance and Control, internationally speaking. Welcome. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me, Youp.
I'm glad you're here. We've been working together for, a short period, but an intense period.
Absolutely, yeah.
What was that about?
What was it about? Yeah, in my journey at FrieslandCampina, that brought me to the United States. I took up a position as a SAP project manager for the FrieslandCampina business in North America, the cheese business in North America. And there were you, huh?
There was I.
Yeah.
Yes,
well.
Dutchman in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there are many. Yeah, we're going to talk about SAP as one of the subjects today. I think the implementation of SAP and moving from a legacy system, which was Navision, to SAP. I think relevant for the finance community. It was an interesting and I believe a very successful project as well, implementation. Difficult, always complex, not necessarily the biggest business unit, but it's always easy to underestimate an implementation like that.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get there, let's talk a bit about that Executive Master of Finance and Control.
Yeah.
We both belong to the same club, if you will. What is that all about? If you had to explain that to anybody not being from the Netherlands.
Well, it's a postgraduate degree you can obtain, something that's usually when people have a little bit of working experience under the belt, and they want to further develop themselves in all the different areas of the finance community. Then the Executive Master of Finance and Control, or Register Controller in good old Dutch, is really a well-known, established education here in the Netherlands. It's at many different universities that you can enroll. And I think it's a unique combination of having relevant business experience that can be either for a shorter or a longer period of time, and being able to make the next step in the more detailed, deeper level of understanding about what the different drivers are in terms of finance, which are behind it. So that can be either more internal control focused, that could be either financial accounting, that could be into management controlling, ethics as a finance professional.
Big part of it.
And one of the compulsory items of our permanent education requirement.
Since a couple of years now.
Yeah, and rightfully so, because the ethics of the finance function is really the pillar, I think, the foundation where a finance professional is always able to relate back to. You can always bring it back to a simple question. How do I feel if you're confronted with a situation? How does it relate to the ethics and to the proper judgment that you should have in that situation?
And how does it relate to an MBA?
MBA, well, to my more limited understanding of it, because me personally,
we don't have one.
We don't have one. No. So that's why it's not RC MBA in my LinkedIn profile
it's
name.
Similar. It is Master of Business Administration or Executive Master of Business Administration. That's the one you see often as well. And we have Executive Master of Finance and Control.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it's similar, but much more focused on finance.
Absolutely right. And but it also entails kind of adjacent topics such as corporate law, such as information technology, ICT systems, basically all kinds of situations where finance is being asked to either support or apply judgment on different topics and or issues that might come up within your organization, be it profit or non-profit.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think the institution of register controllers, basically, their point is if you want to become a CFO, then the register controller, the executive master of finance and control, that's the track to take.
Yeah, that's their USP, I think. If you have that under the belt, it also proves that you're able to, next to your work, complete an education, which is also it's demanding. in terms of what's being asked, in terms of the knowledge that you need to gather and master. But it's also pressure, high demanding in terms of the workload. So you do it next to your regular job in any spare time that you have. And it's really a fast track in that sense. Also a bit of a roller coaster.
How was that period for you? You had a family already when you did that.
I can say, quote unquote, fortunately not, because that meant that I had a little more spare time at hand than people of my cohort who actually had a family at the time. So now at that time I was like, I had 3 to 4 years of working experience. So I was at the end of my 20s, living here in Amsterdam, on biking distance of the university, of the Vrije Universiteit, the VU indeed. And that also meant at the same time that I had many more opportunities at the evenings and during the weekends to work on
the social part. That was a big part of it as well, wasn't it?
Absolutely right, because every Friday, of course, was fully filled with all the courses and sitting for 8 hours straight and listening and engaging with the teachers and the professors. But after some intense work, you need to have some relaxation as well.
It's part of it. There's such a release on the Friday afternoon. I vividly remember those last classes, 3 to 5. It's just get it over with. Because you cramped a full-time job into 4 days. Then on Fridays you would be in college or in class, I have to say. Mm-hmm. And then on Saturday you had the group work. Yep. Leaving Sunday to recover, I think. I don't know. It's just if I look at pictures for myself at that time, it's just I was not the healthiest me.
No, not perhaps in terms of your physical health, but in terms of social health and how the network of the finance professionals, that everybody went through the same thing. So it was a shared experience, a shared journey through the whole of the 2 years that it took, and that really, I think that's a foundation for. Even if now after more than 10 years, then if I would get in touch with somebody that I know through the RC, I would
network is still strong.
That network is very strong because we spent all those hours in class and also some hours after class.
It's almost like going through battle together. It's that's a bit too stark of a definition. But you know what I mean. You know what I mean.
We weren't in the trenches. Fortunately, we were fortunate enough to have a really high level education that we were able to take upon.
I recognize the power of the network. The current assignment that I'm doing is through that very network. It's powerful. Maybe even if I would have to rank all the benefits I got from that particular endeavor, network would be number one. And I think it's the same for an MBA, because everything you learn there is you've been through that level of complexity already during your masters. It's not like it's more difficult. Just getting through it is more difficult because you have a job and sometimes even a family. But it's building a network with ambitious people who then spread out across the globe on interesting positions. That's where the value is. I think that is, to me, the unique selling point, as opposed to becoming the CFO, right? If that's your goal, fine.
Yeah, but you could take from it whatever you want. If you really want to invest in yourself, in your own personal development, if you really are ambitious in terms of what you would like to achieve, if you want to grow your network because you like to exchange ideas and also it serves many different purposes. Absolutely right.
It seems like they're struggling now to get new applicants into the program over the past couple of years. I'm not sure what the reason is. COVID might have played a part in this, but I'm not sure. How would you sell this to somebody in their mid-20s, maybe early 30s? Why would you start this up next to the network element and maybe the career perspective?
I think it's the most recognizable It has the most saying within the finance community of both the Netherlands and also internationally. And I think that the investment is it's worth it.
Yeah.
And if you can even persuade your employer to chip in a bit, then the investment becomes even
that is good advice.
Even more attractive. So
note that down.
Yeah,
because it's not inexpensive, right?
Well, if you could compare it to an MBA, it's relatively cheap.
Yeah.
But all in all, it's.
I've heard MBAs are overrated, so now people are getting mad at me. But hey, it's an opinion.
I think
maybe.
You have a title for your clickbait.
I might have him. Okay, good. I like that. Let's talk about SAP. Can you set the scene? We did the implementation in the US. What was the context?
Well, when I explain it to people, I use the analogy of Asterix and Obelix. So the famous cartoon about the small Gaul village within the Roman Empire with a high level of independency, their own culture, their own ways of working. And successfully managing it. At the same time, if you want to grow, then you're limited by the context where you are operating in with. So what are the systems and the processes that you can use to really scale up and use that as a leverage to expand? And if you're in an attractive business, then you need to make sure that you remove those barriers that limit your growth. And SAP was, in that sense, for the FrieslandCampina organization as a whole, the tool, the way of working to be able to really leverage the skill that the entire organization has.
And FrieslandCampina, for the people who don't know that company, major player in the dairy industry, very Dutch, cooperative owned by thousands of farmers, pooling their resources, their milk, that gets processed globally, mainly in the Netherlands, but globally there's production facilities, cheeses, dairy-based beverages, all kinds of ingredients for sports nutrition. They're even now moving into plant nutrition and much more. So very interesting company with a very Dutch flavor to it. I think the unit you did the implementation for was about last in line for the entire organization.
Yeah, I think in terms of like 90% of FrieslandCampina businesses were running on the global standard of SAP already. So there was a very high level of maturity in the way that SAP was being used or is being used within the organization. High level of experience with what it takes to do a successful rollout. Dedicated teams within the IT that went through multiple implementations and really, know the ropes, what it takes in terms of standardizing your processes and your systems and your master data. And at the same time, as those people, those IT people already went through many implementations, they also had, and I think very much the more successful IT consultants had a deep understanding what it took also locally and how to engage with one another to make it really work. It's not just copy paste and applying and good luck with it. It was really about people connecting and having a genuine interest from both sides, and both sides teaming up, partnering up, and making sure that all of the local business knowledge, all of the local specific and critical demands, that they were reflected in the way that the SAP system and processes were adapted and set up. But at the same time, SAP is all about standardization.
Yeah.
And that's you want to make it work for all of the companies. So you can't make that many exceptions.
Yeah. And the benefits from that, where do you see that practically in the work of finance, being on one system?
Well, Youp, how did you make your monthly report when Navision was still your go-to system? Do we want to go back to that place?
I was expecting that. Yeah. So reporting is one thing.
Yeah. Reporting is one thing. Making sure that all of your processes are covered in the way executed in the way that they should be. I think if you are able to capture your process into one system, that also provides opportunity to specialize and really bring high level of specific knowledge into different parts of that processes.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of people need to let go of their full control of the entirety of the process, but then again, what you get back are specific departments highly specialized in making that part of the process work as best as possible.
Right.
And that's a bit of a leap of faith that you need to do, that you need to let go and trust, and on the level of experience and professionalism of the departments who handle it going forward.
Yeah, for me, the internal control part is a big part to it as well.
Yeah.
If you look at the amount of time spent on internal controls just to tie out a system that was not working for you, with all the automated controls that were implemented in SAP. But before that, it was Navision in the US. We moved from Navision to SAP, and Navision was just it was uncontrolled. Access rights alone, it was just mess. And then you just don't have a foundation. And now the time spent on internal controls afterwards is just limited, which is great. So the financial in the business gets more time to spend on business partnering, which is what the holy grail, isn't it? How much time do we want to spend by partnering with operations? As much as possible, right? Because that's where the value add is. And churning your reports and your spreadsheets, internal controls, and blah, 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 that is a license to operate. It's a necessary evil, if you will.
Well, we learned in our RC that it's the foundation of everything.
It's the foundation of everything.
If I can quote our famous teacher Louis Spohr on that.
I call it a necessary evil.
Well.
No, it's no. Well, in a couple of weeks, I'm gonna have the internal control director over from Lipton. Actually, so it's going to be an interesting conversation, because I think it's a domain which can cripple the organization if it becomes too much, but if done too little, it's mayhem as well. So that balance is interesting to me. So benefits, great. We see all of that. You said something about the context, clear. U.S. operations, skill team. Did it many times before, but it was approached with the local needs in mind. What happened? What does this process look like from front to end?
Yeah, there are many different phases, subsequent phases, and it all starts with validation. So validation in that sense means, and I was very, very glad that our implementation took place post-COVID, where international travel was allowed again, which meant that our IT consultants were able to visit on-site and really connect with the local people in terms of what are you doing at the moment, to fully fledge out all of the business processes, all of the goods flows, information flows, money flows, to capture them in many different flowcharts, and then seeing how all of these processes could be executed in the standard way of working that SAP enforces.
Okay, so you're mapping out the current way of work.
Absolutely right. Yeah, and that leads you to a gap analysis.
Yeah.
And a gap, basically, you have two options. You either conform to what SAP is saying that you should do.
And in this case, it was FrieslandCampina's template design of SAP.
Absolutely, yeah. Of course, it all depends on the way it's specifically set up for your organization. But in generic terms, conforming to the standard is the preferred route. And then, of course, you have more of the exceptions where either a change was needed in the system setup or a change basically a change in the system. So a request for change, but that goes through an extensive approval process. So
protecting the template, making sure that the implementations, to a certain extent, at least, were all similar.
Absolutely right. Yeah. So that means that you need to get your story straight. Why it's that business critical to have exemptions to the template incorporated into the overall template design, because you're not the only one working with it. All the businesses of FrieslandCampina around the globe are working with it. and you don't want big factories to shut down because of a local need of FrieslandCampina in North America.
Exactly.
And I think as a potential.
This was a decade-long program. I believe it has come to a conclusion largely now, but that control around deviations, implementing deviations, was much less at the beginning. Then they became more and more strict, getting more mature in doing all those implementations. Even much so that they had to do some re-implementations, right?
Yeah, of course. You don't know what it's in that sense. It's exploring along the way. Yeah, you don't know what you need. So there's the template was something that was also developed along the way, and that at some moment, exactly like you say, at a certain moment in time, that was fixed to the biggest extent.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So you do validation.
Yeah.
What do we do now? Gap analysis to the template. Then you get your gaps approved, or business. No, you change to the template.
Yeah.
It's a tough discussion sometimes. And along which lenses did we go through this process?
Yeah, it basically came all together into a change impact analysis. So it was an analysis of all the different lenses, like you can call them, in which you can say that they dove into. Just taking some notes, but you could either look through it through a process point of view, system point of view, people point of view, and organization point of view. So those are the four lenses in which any impact of change was assessed. Well, in our case, system impact was by far the biggest, because you move from a legacy non-SAP system into SAP. So basically all of your processes system-wise change. Organizational, also a big change in terms of what we also at the same time did was transition into a shared service environment for finance.
At the same time.
We didn't think it was worthwhile to have the local people of finance who were highly skilled in working with Navision, learn the tricks and trades of SAP, and then once they were there, transition into a shared service center back in Europe. Yeah. So that wouldn't be fair to the people involved to first skill them and then take it away.
Yeah, and this was one, as project manager of this implementation, this was one of your recommendations to do this simultaneously.
Absolutely right. But that also had the fortunate side effect that we onboarded into our project FMCG specialists.
Yes, with a lot of knowledge. I think this was one of the best calls made in the project. If I think about this now, I would have done it differently, because I was doing the finance track of this project. You were the overall project manager, and I mean, we brought by getting the Budapest Shared Service Center in, we brought in a ton of experience. We didn't know how the system worked. They have been servicing multiple business units for years already on that very system. They knew exactly what was going on, and getting that into the project, we would have ended up with quite a mess, I think, if we would have done it differently.
I think it's one of the major contributing factors of our success, but I think it also has to do with that there were people eager of the FCC to really develop understanding of the requirements and to match it with the specific solutions that they were already highly experienced in. Yeah. And that built assurance. That gave trust. That meant that people felt heard. Like, okay, I have a genuine concern, and there was a genuine response to it. Yeah. I think that's in general terms that has stuck with me as the biggest reflection that I have. That the people were genuinely interested and connected.
Yeah, and what I liked is that a couple of times they came back with feedback on some ideas that we have, and they said, don't do it like this. If you do it like this and we need to take over your processes, it's got to be mayhem. Yeah. So it drove simplification. Because I felt like at some point, it's so easy to ask for adjustments into the system because you think your way of working is the way of working and you cannot do it anyway else because you just don't know. And then those people come in and say, hey, this is the way. Trust me. Do it. It was so comforting.
Yeah, and they know it for all businesses. So they know that they can make it work for all businesses. So why would your specific business be that much more unique?
Yeah, true. And there's always the challenge. Yeah. Okay, lenses, validation, gap analysis. Then you have your gaps. You get your changes approved. Then what?
Master data.
Yes. Dry and endless, but oh so necessary.
Yeah. There's not a moment soon enough to start with master data.
Yeah. So we have, which tracks do we have? We have finance, we have procurement to pay. What was the scope?
Basically full scope. That meant sales and operational planning, purchase to pay, both for our direct materials, our primary product cheese, as well as indirect, so for all of the services. That's make order to cash sales, so all of your sales processes, order to cash delivery, so delivering the product, finance to manage, all the finance processes, and a tiny bit of quality within the make to demand domain.
What was the most challenging track, in your opinion?
Ooh. I think order to cash delivery, but that in part had to do with activities that were done by local external partners. All of the warehouses we operated were external partners providing services to our company and making sure that our external partners work in the way that we like them to work. We require them to work. And FrieslandCampina being not one of their biggest clients meant that there was a lot of persuasion needed, a lot of cooperation needed to get them
but I think the challenge was recognized early on. So it was a challenge, but we went live, I think, with the majority of the items panned out. Yeah, I think the biggest proof of that is that we didn't have much delivery delays. Right,
there were cheese on the shelves.
Cheese on the shelves continued. No drop in volumes. Fill rates were up. Service rates were up. Yeah. And of course, if you zoom in, there were bits and pieces, but nothing you could see largely in any trend. I think it's a great accomplishment, isn't it? But yeah, OTC, OTD, difficult. What was the best executed track? Say it.
You want a pat on the back, you?
No. I'm kidding. But it was finance. No, it was not. Was it though? Finance went smooth. I think we had a good team. Yeah, we had a good team, and largely because of because it's easy for me to say. I was finance manager there at the time, doing the processes in the vision with a good team, and we brought it to a shared service center. Yeah. So a large piece of our work went to shared service center. So that means that for us it was pretty. I felt so comfortable because it got into the hands of the professional team there in Budapest. That helped a lot. Yeah, that made it easier.
But frankly speaking, for finance, you knew SAP already.
Yes,
from your time with ingredients.
That helped.
And I think the other work streams, they didn't even know what SP looked like.
Such a challenge. So
in terms of so where the challenge with finance was the handover, the real physical handover of activities from one part of the organization to another, and where the learning curve for all the other work streams was they didn't have a clue.
Yeah, for me
about how SAP worked, how FrieslandCampina has set it up.
But that's a fair point. For
me,
it was easy.
They made in that sense the biggest leap.
The biggest leap by far, and that's why I'm saying it. That's why I'm kidding about this. For me, it's easy to say because I at some point I could let go because I didn't know the details of the upcoming process too much because other people would execute it. That's the point you're trying to make.
Exactly.
And all the other departments, they need to let go of their ways of working for 20 years. Sometimes we had some long-time employees within that team, and they suddenly needed to shift from a system they knew in and out to something completely new. I hats off. That was a great
they
accomplishment.
really stepped up, and I really like that one of the team leads for sales. She set out at the start of the project the ambition, I want to become the SAP expert. That was her ambition.
Yeah.
At the end of the project to become that, and I think she really pulled it off together with the team. Yeah.
So if you look at the team and the importance of keeping the spirits up in a very challenging time, for those people, it means that they need to keep running the business. There's backfill support, but you know how it is, right? That's not 100%. So you need to keep being involved in the running business and do all the project work. You can only hold on to that for so long before you start to break up.
Yeah.
How did you manage that as a project manager? What did you do to make that better?
First of all, establish a trust that whatever the issue is, come to me, escalate, open lines of communication. Acknowledging that it will only become tougher before it gets easier. Making sure that we need to work on today, what's needed today, instead of also servicing the requests of things that can be either postponed or done later. And also making sure that to have fun along the way. I felt one part of my role was project manager, another part of my role was cheerleader. Entertainer.
You were part of the animation team.
Yeah. So every time I went to the States, my suitcase was filled with Dutch treats, gadgets. We celebrated King's Day in the US during our go live period. So everybody was dressed up in orange, and we really made sure that from the outset of the project, from teaming up the IT consultants together with the local project and other business team, that we really took time to invest to build these relations. Yeah. And that pulled us through.
I think you did that very well. It was very noticeable that you put effort into that side of the project, which was helpful. I still remember we had one of our major milestones on King's Day. Indeed, we had the cutover from the inventory old to new system, which is it's tricky, right? It's high pressure. It needs to go well.
Yeah.
Business needs to open on Monday. You've got the weekend. It needs to go well. Otherwise, there's a service impact and a bottom line impact. And I had tickets for a boat party on King's Day on the canals. But we traveled to Jersey and mixed feelings. We wanted to go, right? But also, oh shit, that boat party. But then you were there and everybody was dressed in orange and we did the cutover. It was so much fun and we did it so smoothly. And in the end, it was one of the, as usual, right? The difficult bits in hindsight are the most fun things and the things you remember out of the project. And those, I think I shared those pictures on LinkedIn too.
Oh yeah, me too. Yeah. And the great thing is that everybody just took part of it. I can remember our sales manager Lewis sitting in a conference call with one of his customers, I believe, and he was fully dressed in orange with a hat on, and he was just living the King's Day.
To the unknowing American, he looked like a clown.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, that was a lot of fun. Yeah. So then master data cutover. How do you prepare a team? Because it remains surreal to a certain extent until it's there. How do you prepare the team to really know, guys? Right, I think it was the 1st of April that we went live, or mid-April, something like that. It's gonna happen. This is what you need to know. This is your new way of working. That old system won't be there anymore. How do you manage that change?
I think to really acknowledge the fact that the old world ceases to exist.
It's,
I think it's really
quite apocalyptic.
I can remember a picture that I put on during our cutover or go live check-ins in the morning, where we basically buried the vision. So I put up a picture of a tombstone. I put the date on it, and I put the vision on the tombstone. Like,
it was hilarious.
This is over. This is done. This is the past. We won't dwell on the past. We only look forward.
It was rest in peace, Navision, tombstone.
Yep.
It helped.
Yeah,
it was a grim message in a way, right? Because usually the corporate rhetoric is all positive and nice and sweet and a bit soft, right? And suddenly there were you, tombstone, bye.
Yeah. I mean, that's done and dusted. That is the past, and I think that. If you can say one thing of the US culture is that they're always forward-looking.
Oh, yeah.
So they're always forward-looking on expanding, growing. And they really knew and acknowledged that in order to do that, they needed to make a step change.
Yeah. Do we Dutchies dwell in the past much more from that perspective?
I think so.
Bit, eh?
In part, yeah.
Yeah. Bit more sentimental, maybe.
And it was also, I think, a very, very good management support. Yeah, management were fully on board. Local management, the whole team there. Of course, in a continuous struggle of balancing the day-to-day business and the project at the same time, really meant high stress at times.
Yeah,
but the end goal never was. Degraded in terms of where we needed to go to. No. The end goal was always clear and confirmed.
And the end goal was, upon go live, we have a working system, fully functioning. We need to work out the bits and pieces. We need to get into the processes, and there will be a learning curve, but there's no development to be done. It's live.
And perhaps I need to get back or rephrase end goal, because end goal in terms of SAP, of course you can say once you have the system up and running, that's your end goal. But basically then you're at the start of a new journey.
It's a very good nuance.
So it's not like as of go live all the problems are either disappeared or...
but you were. Or not.
SAP as a project ceases to exist. Then it comes SAP as business as usual, and how to make it as usual as possible. How to make it your business.
Yeah,
that's then the phase that follows directly upon it.
Yeah.
And that's not project work.
You've been in touch with a team long after you moved out as a project manager. Reflecting now on that implementation, to what extent do you think this has been a success?
I think all the people that participated throughout the course of the project are now also still working within the company, within the US. We didn't scare off. And there were people offboarding as a result of the project that was implemented. So I think in that sense, the retention and the ability of people then to really work with it has been good. Yeah,
I like how you bring it back to the personal side. I think that's a large part of the way you work. You have a very that's maybe a thing which I notice it because I have it less maybe, and I like that about the way you work is the personal side of things, and that's the first thing you mentioned. The people are still there; they like it. It was tough, but
yeah. It's all about the people. It's a cliche, but that's what cliches are for, eh? They hold true.
Yeah, definitely. To a certain extent, at least. And what was, for you as a project manager, the most challenging part? I mean, the people part you had covered. Important part. Were there other items within that implementation you thought, oh, this is not my cup of tea?
Well, I came in with a background in finance, and I've done a finance SAP, the finance part of an SAP implementation before.
You did already what I did in your implementation. basically.
Yes.
Finance lead.
Yes. I 4 years prior, I covered the final implementation phase of an SAP implementation within the cheese supply chain network,
Including
factories and packaging and storage locations.
That's also challenging.
Yeah,
Complex.
But it really was the last phase of go live management. All of the groundwork in terms of designing, blueprinting, that already had taken place.
Oh, you came in mid-project.
Yep. And this time around, I was for all processes responsible. So that meant a significant learning curve in what S&OP means, what purchase to pay means. You have some ideas about what it should look like, but once you get into the nitty gritty, then you know what you don't know, and that's a lot. And then there is a certain moment in time that you don't have enough time, you don't have enough capacity, mental capacity, to go into details, go into depth on each and every work stream.
Yeah.
So that means that you need to make sure that everybody who does their job in the respective work streams is fully able to. You're an enabler. An enabler means making sure that people have all the necessary requirements in place to be able to do their job, and every roadblock they come into, that you come into play again.
Yeah. So you need to zoom out. It's not much unlike growing in responsibility in any job, right? That you suddenly notice that, okay, I don't have time for this anymore. I need to trust the other people to do it for me. Yeah. So that's a learning, I suppose you still reap the benefits of now in your positions after.
Yeah, you really I wouldn't call myself a control freak, but I like to understand what's going on. But there are different levels of understanding that you can develop or go into. So making sure that you're at the appropriate level of understanding to also the Dutch saying is
we can translate it. You can do it in French if you want. It's not a problem.
Pas de probleem. You need to be able to also cut through the bullshit a bit, to really to be able to assess, is this like unwilling or unknowing or because if you were to list all of the issues that we came across, then it's a long list. Yeah. But what makes an issue critical?
Yeah, you need to keep going. You need to keep going. 100 things come up, and how to assess, this is what I need to attend to, and this is what I'm just going to let go.
Yeah.
And also crash some cars along the way. Yeah. I mean, it's part of the deal.
Yeah.
So what are your recommendations for anybody who is attempting to implement SAP or maybe currently in the middle of this ordeal? What are the couple of things you say, okay, project manager to project manager, this is what you need to focus on?
Scoping.
Scope creep. Scope creep.
Scope creep.
Yeah, scope creep is it's a risk, isn't it? We're just pulling in more and more things that we want to implement.
The creep, as in the other kinds of creeps.
The other creep. Yeah, well,
the Radiohead song.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we can play that later.
Yeah.
Scope 1.
Scope, absolutely right. Invest in teams. In partnering up the business and IT knowledge to really make sure that they support each other and they work together. Invest time there and putting the right people together. And sometimes you need to play with the cards that you are dealt with. I mean, but that was a big part. Recommendations. Yeah, just also make it a project objective to have fun along the way. That's.
And think from a content perspective, a couple of critical items I wrote down while you were speaking is the third-party management.
Yeah.
Make sure you involve your. It's so easy to get internally focused and just discuss this endlessly amongst yourself, but by reaching out to those third parties. And also the shared service center piece of it.
Yeah.
You just draw in such an amount of knowledge. Take along those third parties. I think we did that well. That for me was indeed a key takeaway. Yeah. Okay. So is this this used to be this SAP or ERP implementation ordeal used to be a project where you would put the people on you would want to get rid of because it's such an easy to fail project, and I don't think that's the case anymore because at least not with at FrieslandCampina.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you did it well. Would you do it again if you had to?
I wouldn't shy of it. No.
So you're not traumatized by any of
No, absolutely not. No. I like to be able either like a fully project position or taking up a side project to your regular position, but switching out of the day-to-day business into a project with a clear objective and a clear team and a clear timeline.
Yeah.
To me, it always has been a really good stepping in and out of your business position really brings what's to say, obviously
it's a change of pace.
Yeah. I mean, the you're not living from month end close to month end close anymore.
No.
I didn't do month end close for 1 year and a half. I can fully recommend everybody to to once in a while do that. Yeah.
Great learning experience. Yeah, for me as well. I truly enjoyed it. I like the pressure. I like the teamwork. It's intense. It's worth it. And it's one of the reasons that I'm also focusing more on process improvement assignments which have a touch of that. I think that was my takeaway of the project. Just doing that control cycle over and over again. I've done that for 10 years. But now moving into the more business process improvement, which basically that's what the SP implementation is. Very interesting to me. So that's my key takeaway. All right, SAP. Well, success story, definitely, right? Tooting your own horn, definitely. Why not? Sure, that's part of the deal. No, I mean, I think you did it well, and everybody was. If you look at senior management, they were all. They were happy.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about.
If you don't cause senior management issues, then senior management is happy with you too. Yeah.
Oh, exactly. Okay, we're going to move to the next topic. You WhatsApped me just before this recording. It was a couple of days ago. You said, Youp, you need to listen to this podcast. I want to talk about it. And it was about... It was about our economic system. It was about our the state of our ecological system, and there was also a theological view to it. You said maybe a bit too abstract, but I want to talk about it. What triggered you?
What triggered me was the idea: when is enough enough?
When is enough enough? Well,
so,
when?
Yeah. So is there always something bigger and better at the horizon or beyond the horizon that you put all your time and money and effort into? And what is it? What are the values that you are striving for? Is that always in terms of an economic sense, money and being able to consume more and always bigger and higher and larger?
Yeah. Or
are there other aspects, other values that you would like to be able to develop yourself? And what triggered me in that podcast is that it said that over the course of the last 200 years in our first world economies, we've been able to generate enormous growth, that we really were able to improve all of the standards of living for the people of our countries.
Yeah.
but that model now runs into its own success in terms of what it costs as well.
Right. There's a price to pay.
There's a big price to pay.
Which we here don't necessarily see directly.
No, we're in terms of our planetary boundaries, climate, water, materials usage, air pollution, biodiversity, you name it. Basically, our planet is on fire. Yeah. I don't know whether you've been able to ice skate this winter, but over the last 10 to 15 years in the Netherlands, it's been and nothing but a warm weather along where it should be cold winters.
Right.
That's just anecdotal in terms of here in the Netherlands. But what it's saying is that economic growth has always been really much focused on the measurable economic side of things. But what about
GDP?
Yeah,
personal income.
Yeah. But what about culture? What about social? What about also spiritual?
Yeah.
What we can measure, we would like to work upon, but the things you don't manage, more the qualitative sides of the life.
Did we lose that as a society?
Well, I think that what's now been proven is that there's an inclination that that consumption is only increasing. So even though we are able to produce much more efficiently than at lower levels of impact, it has been proven that over 50% of that efficiency gain is then at the same time offset again by increases in consumption. If you have, for instance, the petrol engine over the course of 50 years, in terms of the efficiency of the fuel consumption,
beautiful machine.
The fuel consumption dropped by 50%. But at the same time, the most sold car from Volkswagen,
the volume goes up.
It was a Volkswagen Beetle a couple of years ago, and now it's a Volkswagen SUV, which is double the size. Yeah. So that means that all of the innovation that we apply gets offset again by increases in consumption as well. And that what it triggers me is that and where it hit a personal snare with me is then saying, okay, what do you really need? Huh? Can you really break it down in terms of what you consume, what you use, and what are then the elements which are most important to you? What's all noise?
Yeah. So basically, you're saying we are inclined to do more. We've learned we come out of a prolonged period of growth, economic growth, material growth, especially in the Western world. Yeah. And limits of the planet, ecological problem, and it seems like the only way out is to consume less.
It's part of the solution. I think it's like an economic system. The economic system is like a hierarchy of values. And why should we put, in terms of a hierarchy of values, why should we let the top value be decided upon by economics?
Yeah, capitalism.
By capitalism. Why aren't other lenses, other views not part of that number one position?
In that particular podcast, what was the name? What was the name of the podcast again? Remember?
Yeah, the Dutch title is the Ongelooflijke Podcast.
All right, it doesn't translate too well, or maybe I need to think about it. But they said that the economy has become the new religion.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, that's basically what it boils down to, and that comes at an expense as well. If you only see that the average household in the Netherlands, what it consumes, it takes 10. There are, I think, about 6 to 7 million households in the Netherlands. In the global south, and that's a very generic term for the rest of the world,
south of the equator,
it takes 10 million people in low wage jobs or uncertain jobs to produce the stuff that we consume.
Yeah.
So that's 10 million. So for every household, there's 1.4 FTE of people working each and every day to make stuff that we consume.
And then the whole idea is, wouldn't it be better for them to work in their own economies locally and provide welfare for that? The difficult part for me is that I think, yes, you're right, I see the problem, but then again, our entire system is in supply chains are geared towards this.
The whole mindset is geared
and the whole mindset. So when, but just talking about this, you don't make a change. This is, I sometimes feel with the problems at this scale, it will only change when we have a next crisis, which really makes people force when you're hitting your pocket, right? That's where you start moving, right? By just knowing that there's a problem, but it's not affecting you yet, nothing is going to happen. So when do you foresee this to peak, and is it then too late to make a change, or what is your vision on that?
I think the whole problem is that all of the whole impact of environmental change is hitting the poorest people of the world, the poorest countries of the world. They are if the temperature in India goes up to 40-45 degrees, it's the poor people there who suffer the most. It's not us, where here in Western Europe we can remedy that in the short run by getting some AC installed. Yeah.
So from a fairness perspective, it's not there.
It's out of sight. The production is out of sight, but also the impact of the environmental change is also out of sight because of all of the long global supply chains that are in place.
But how do you bring a religion into the story? That's the one factor we haven't discussed yet.
How do you bring religion? Well, I don't think that religion per se is the answer, or it holds the answer, or should be. But what I do think religion is able to bring to that table of the discussion is saying that there's more to the world than just consuming.
Right.
There's more to the world than trying as hard as you can to be independent of each and everybody.
Yeah.
I see religion more, it's both something spiritual, but much more to do about communities.
Yeah.
Where people come together because they have a same need or a same view on the world.
And we've lost that over time. If you look at if you look just at the statistics and the amount of people just in the Netherlands alone, we're lowest, all-time low in terms of practicing religion, classical religion, Christianity or whatever. We've never been as unreligious ever.
Yeah, but that also at the same time means that the people are retreating back to their own. Their own space, their own personal space, and that there are now the number of interactions that takes place between people who have different views on the world that also diminishes. The famous bubbles, people retracting to their bubbles, and I think where the so-called this is part of the post-growth view on the world, that if you reduce on your consumption, that it means that you become a bit more dependent upon one another, because you tend to be you need to, if you don't have the funds to purchase something that you then possess, you might need to go to your neighbor and ask, hey, can I borrow this and that,
which is a scary thought for many.
Yeah,
because there's dependency, and the dependency is after periods of the most independence we've ever seen.
Yeah, I think
scares me personally. I value my independence and my freedom. It's one of the cornerstones I live by. I've arranged my life according to those principles. I might be the biggest part of the problem.
But if you fall down the stairs here, how independent are you?
No, and this is the whole point.
And if you
This
walk
is the
out
whole
on
point.
the street, you get hit by one of those cars here.
Exactly. And the striking thing to me was I saw this one clip about all those people who wanted to live off the grid.
Yeah.
I want to live off the grid because I'm tired of society and all of that. And then somebody made the example, hey, that pencil you're going to use when you live off the grid, you need a ton of people to produce that pencil, and you cannot do it alone. So think again, if you live off the grid but still have your lifeline to all the facilities in whatever city you lived in, it doesn't work. It's such a simple thought. And I mean, so independence, but still it's not really independence. It's social. Yeah, maybe you mean it in a social way more.
Yeah, I think and also dependency is something that can bring. If you open up to somebody and asking somebody for a service or just asking somebody something, that's also A, you get in touch, B, somebody who is willing to give you something feels good about, hey, I'm able to give you something, I can provide you something, we can share. And at the same time, that person who's giving, you also opening up to that person to also ask you a question, either in return or... so I think in terms of capitalism, going back to the capitalism part, I think capitalism works when it doesn't put excessive pressure on relations viewed through the return on investment lens only. Long-lasting relations where both parties on the long run mutually benefit from, where it's not about the short gain but the long run, those relations, those are foundations for a community which is much more stronger than being totally independent. Well, that's a bit of a it's a fragile concept. I mean, you're not as independent as you think. You're depending, rightfully, like you say, on everybody and everything around you.
Yeah, 100%. So, what is your key takeout? I mean, it's an interesting thought. I think I like the concept. It's in a way inevitable. I think everybody knows. But when you start. What do you do? Do you think about it? Do you implement actual things in your life to cope with this? How you're dealing with this?
Well, for one example, for instance, is I don't own a car. I share it together with my parents who live a couple of doors down.
Conscious decision.
With 2 households, do you need 4 cars?
It's nice.
It's nice.
I just have the one.
Yeah.
So, but you say this very lightly. There's not many people who don't have a car. It's usually 2.
It's status. Car is a status.
Yes. But this is and this is where
there are
I
many
get
things which are a status.
Yeah, and that's where I get a bit cynical about all of this, because I think the whole social aspect and the status aspect is so ingrained, it's so hardwired into people.
Yeah.
And it goes back to what I said before.
But
how are you going to make a change?
When were you most happy about your car? Was it the 5 minutes before you bought it, the 5 minutes after you bought it, or now?
It was mostly the pre-fun. That was good.
Yeah. And how long did that last? Did it die off?
No, I had this very conversation with Kim, and it died off within a couple of weeks. You get used to it. I don't care anymore. It's fun, and I mean there was a fun of driving a good car in the States. It was relatively cheap, and we traded down being back here in Holland, and partly also because it's just unaffordable to drive a car like that in Holland. But also we had this very conversation. You don't really need it, and I'd rather have the financial flexibility. Truly, but not having a car, I mean, kudos to you. I need to.
Of course, I do have a car in that sense.
Technically, you do have a car, yes. But so you share it, but you drive it 90% of the time.
Well, actually, Youp, I took up a new job within biking distance of my home. So that was one of the key aspects of changing into a new position. Is it in bike distance of work?
So you're taking steps. You're conscious about it, and seems like you're not the over-consuming citizen.
I think the best advice is if you have a desire for something, write it on a piece of paper, put it in a drawer. After a month, put it out again, and do you still feel the same desire?
Jesus,
go for it.
What my mom used to say right before my birthday. It's just
temper your urges.
Temper. No, but I don't think we shouldn't do this out of fear. We shouldn't do this out of the world is coming to an end. I don't like that. We still have to see one, right? And doing something out of fear is, I think, it's not the right way. It's manipulative as well, especially if the fear is being extrapolated and by other parties. But having that said, I think why you need to do it for you. I think that's the selling point, because if you say to yourself, I have enough, right? I don't need an extra car, right? Or I don't need that bigger house, or I don't need this. It's hard to get there, I think, and I haven't found a good way yet, I have to say, right? No, but I'm very honest about this. I'm not the biggest materialist, but I do like my nice things. Yes, I do have too many guitars.
But then invest in things that are long lasting.
Yeah.
That will that you can use for a long time. That are repairable, for instance. And
all I'm trying to say is that I'm not a saint.
But it also
here.
at the same time means that you don't get to show off a new pair of shoes every couple of weeks.
Shoes,
perhaps,
I don't care about.
Or a new guitar.
I've tried that, but I'm 34 now, and I don't need to impress the girls anymore. So it worked when I was 15, and then I only had one, so it didn't work. So then I got collecting them later on in life. So not out of fear, I would say. What is your... how do we get here? Take away my cynicism, please.
I think I can just to quote the person who was speaking on that original podcast that I was listening to. And his name is Paul Schenderling, and I think his main message was. You don't know the level of joy that goes with it up until the moment that you take that real transition, that real step.
It takes confidence to... I think that's what it is. It takes confidence to not want to impress other people with all the stuff that you own.
That and trusting that there's always a solution to something that you need. And just trust in it.
Okay, how does religion help you in this aspect?
That religion is really explicit in terms of what's number one. If you look through to the Christian religion or the Jewish religion, then God is number one, and not the economy.
There's your different hierarchy. Does it talk explicitly about materialism? Does the Bible say anything about don't buy a second car?
No, but you can see that I think also in that podcast it was referenced that you have the famous mountain speech of Jesus Christ, where he basically was surrounded by a lot of people who were in the lower levels of the society at that time. And what he was saying, if you pull together your resources, if you pull together as a community, you own far more in this life and in the next life. And to me, religion is not per se something that I, in terms of theoretical conversations, in terms of does it exist or does it not exist, it's much more to do about what can you take from the message and and use as a way of.
It's the wisdom that is definitely to be
you
found.
use it for your compass in day-to-day life and what you want to. What kind of values you like to exhibit, you like to share, and also perhaps pass on to people and future generations.
Right.
Huh?
I've never been exposed much to religion. My parents were baptized because there was just a regular ordeal back then, but they were not practicing in any way. We didn't get that growing up. Jordan Peterson is one of the clinical psychologists, which is now quite renowned online, who was saying, I believe, and he's a bit controversial, I think, or not. I know, and I don't think he's controversial, but hey, he's got some things that are out there. I like what he's saying, and in the way he says his things, he blends in a lot of religious aspects into it, and he brings that wisdom from biblical stories into the way he explains things he sees in the world, and that's where I see that connection. I think that's what you're trying to say. I have this. There's a lot of good things to be said about all those stories, the metaphors and the archetypes in all those stories, and that sparked my interest. And I know so very little about it, and in a way, I'm at the point in my life for the first time where I would be curious to explore it further, which is something I thought I would never have said. Interesting stuff.
Yeah, I think it's always good to open up to the questions you have and the different paths that might provide you to answers or potentially no answers as well. I mean, just exploring on a path without knowing what it will bring. That's just the trust you need to have in the process.
Yeah, for me, it's curiosity.
Yeah,
I think that's what drives it. And I come from a town where not many people were religious, and religious was out of fashion.
In West Friesland, yeah.
We had this conversation, so we're going to clear this up once and for all. I'm from Castricum, which is along any deferring map from West Friesland, not even close. Well, it's close, but it's not in West Friesland. It's North Holland.
It's a touch point, eh? Yeah.
You don't seem to get the message. So it's on record now. I keep repeating. I'm not a West Fries. Yes.
Yeah, okay. That's what they all say. Yeah.
But they're lovely people, by the way. That's not the point.
No,
that's not the point. No, but it was religion was made fun of back in my youth.
Yeah.
Right. You don't do that. You don't go to church. Right, my grandma went back to church later in life when she lost her husband, my grandpa, and she is getting a lot of strength out of doing exactly that. And noticing this, there's a lot to it. But then I get to, and religion is more than just going to church, or for some people it's not even included. But then if I look at that place right now, it's architecturally beautiful, but then you get in and it's just old and there is not attractive anymore. If we could find a way to get some interesting people into those places, to draw people back in, it might just work. But now it's just, I look at the people and I go, fix your sound system first. I cannot, what are you saying? I don't have a clue, right? Yeah. But maybe that's
there's a lot of tradition to it.
That might be the church where I go to, but that's mainly for festive events, or funerals. Yeah. I think we are nearing the end. We've been talking for quite a bit. I think we're over an hour. We're at yes, we are over an hour. Let's call it quits. I want to thank you for all your insights, interesting stories about SAP, but also the last part. I think I'm going to finish that podcast, see what it brings.
Curious to know what you take out of it and what it might bring. And,
thanks.
Welcome.
All right.
It was a pleasure being here.
Yes. Oh man, zweethandjes. Lekker.